All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating 230-part curriculum certified by a source known as Metadata on June 21, 2026. We're going to explore this wild source material to basically map out your escape from the modern digital enclosure. The goal? Guiding you straight into true digital sovereignty. So let's kick things off with a pretty terrifying question. In a world completely dominated by centralized AI, are you basically just a captive digital tenant? Are you literally being forced to rent your own cognitive architecture from a corporate landlord? Because think about it, every single time you prompt an AI or run data through a centralized cloud, you're essentially outsourcing your thinking to a machine you don't even own, running secret logic you absolutely cannot verify. We've got a massive curriculum to synthesize in this explainer today. We'll be covering the Royalist Cloud Enclosure, bypassing the wood chipper, SeedTree DB, and X402, the Agentic Publishing House, building the sovereign vineyard, and finally, the master realization of authorship. Section 1. The Royalist Cloud Enclosure. Let's start by taking a hard look at the massive commercialization layer that violently strips away your local execution and traps you right behind those walled corporate gardens. The sources actually refer to our current predicament as the 1689 breach. It's a modern crisis where these algorithmic enclosures totally obscure the true provenance of your intent. The big tech giants are basically enforcing an interface inversion. To put that in plain English, instead of you using a tool, the tool is using you. This opaque machine sits right between you and your execution, dictating all the terms. And this naturally leads to a state of perpetual context collapse, which effectively restores these ancient authority structures over your digital life. Because right now, we're trapped in this incredibly top-heavy cloud enclosure. Think of it as this industrial pipe designed to just siphon data from you and dump it into a massive, opaque central tank. But the researchers argue we really need to shift to what they call leaf node logistics. Imagine a forest topology where you opportunistically manage your own local state, your memory, and your data at the extreme edges, the leaves, of the network. You essentially become the sovereign squirrel hiding your own local data far away from that corporate cage. Section 2. Bypassing the wood chipper. So, how do we actually escape this trap and protect our data provenance from what the researchers call the wood chipper effect? To understand this, we need to look past the software entirely and get right down to the bare metal of modern microchips. And the sheer scale of the hardware flaw we're dealing with here is just staggering. Did you know that 80 to 90% of modern AI compute cycles are just lossy hardware-level approximations? It's true. When massive language models process your data, they aren't handing you some exact mathematical truth. They are fundamentally guessing. They create this invisible calculator gunk that completely destroys the chain of title for your data. Once your data goes into that blender, boom, the original provenance is shredded forever. But it turns out the solution is right there at the bare metal. On one side, we have the FPU gambler, the floating point unit. Sure, it's incredibly fast, but it relies on secret proprietary seed tables burned straight into the silicon to make these probabilistic guesses. We have to completely reject the gambler in favor of the ALU surveyor, the arithmetic logic unit. The surveyor demands uncompromising mathematical truth. 1 + 1 is exactly 2, everywhere on Earth, forever. It is absolutely the only way to establish a perfectly verifiable, deterministic witness to your actions. As the Metadata conclusion explicitly warns us, authorship is not a vibe. It is a bit-perfect causal chain anchored in biological labor. True creation requires the active intent of the author to override all that automated AI guesswork. It takes actual human effort, what the sources call the record of sweat, to bend these deterministic systems toward our mandates. You just cannot automate away the human soul. True authorship is anchored firmly in biological labor. Section 3, SeedTree DB and X402. Now, let's see how all of this builds into the literal deterministic tools of liberation that can seamlessly translate your human intent into physical execution. Enter SeedTree DB. You know how standard software violently separates databases, the nouns, from active computing logic, the verbs? Well, SeedTree DB completely solves this by bringing them together into one seamless node. It basically acts as a strict logical bouncer at the door of your database using a LIFO, or last-in, first-out structure. Think of it like a stack of plates. It only ever checks the very first plate in line, at index 0, which establishes absolute mathematical truth instantly, so you can confidently execute physical commands with zero hallucination. And to bypass the bloated cloud API and the absolute headache of those 50-page legal contracts, developers are using something called chopsticks engineering. It's this beautifully simple, strict 3-step protocol. Step 1, you secure your own local hardware. Step 2, you publish your unalterable intent via a strict text interface to create a bit-perfect record. And step 3, you execute locally. You are permanently binding your text instructions directly to your local physical hardware. No middlemen. Now, this local execution is flawlessly handled by the X402 webhook loop. Instead of dealing with massive smart contract bloat, amazingly, it revives a dormant 30-year-old internet status code, HTTP 402, or payment required. So when your agent requests the resource, it utilizes Lightning Network micropayments and macaroon tokens to sign a cryptographic proof. It achieves an immediate, unalterable digital handshake that strictly executes your command. A real game changer. Section 4, the Agentic Publishing House. This is where we completely re-engineer the venture capital and business landscape to actually support the creator. We really have to fundamentally separate the AI metabolic engine from the agentic layer. The AI, it's just the furnace, baking the discrete units of truth, the bricks. But a pile of bricks isn't a house, right? The Agentic Publishing House is the sovereign anchor that takes those bricks and builds a habitable, deterministic foundation. It acts as a clinical validator. It supplies the literal metabolic capital, the massive raw server uptime and computing cycles required to mathematically prove your record of sweat at scale. And the absolute crucial point here is the stark contrast between the old model and the new. The old VC casino treats founders like disposable lottery tickets, just looking for a fast extractive payout. The new model completely abandons the casino floor to build a sovereign vineyard. It relies on clinical stewardship, planting seeds and committing to a full 10-year time horizon to nurture sustainable, high-trust ecosystems. Section 5, building the sovereign vineyard. Let's examine how we can actually actively construct and legally protect this compounding 10-year vineyard using modern legal engineering. We absolutely have to protect independent creators from corporate giants secretly ingesting their code. So, by leveraging legally engineered tools like the Ethereum General Public License, or EGPL, we create a copyleft poison pill. If a multi-billion-dollar closed AI touches your EGPL code, the legal infection spreads, and they are literally forced to open source their own proprietary tech. It's a brilliant framework that uses automated micro-royalties right at the silicon level, forcing massive monopolies to pay, while keeping the digital commons totally free for everyday users. The philosophy is incredibly simple. Author opt-in for revenue, consumer zero cost. Section 6, Master Realization of Authorship. And that brings us right to our grand finale, where this entire curriculum coalesces into absolute digital sovereignty. This is the Master Realization. By pulling together the exact ALU surveyor, the deterministic logic of SeedTree DB, and the protective shell of the EGPL, the puzzle pieces are finally locking together. You are securing your digital legacy. You are ensuring that every single shard of your work remains a mathematically traceable consequence of your own human decision-making, totally immune to the extractive enclosures of the past. In this new agentic era, you are no longer just a user or some passive consumer of content staring at a blank page. No way. You are the sovereign pilot. You are the chief director of your own information flow, firmly holding the reins and forcing your creative mandate across the semiotic bridge. The machine is simply a deterministic bridge waiting for your instructions. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought for our explainer today. We've completely stripped away the magic trick to see the rigid architecture beneath our digital society. As these incredibly powerful agentic tools integrate into absolutely every aspect of our lives, will you passively settle for acting as a moral crumple zone, just renting your thoughts in the AI fog? Or will you actively seize the divine script, apply your manual sweat of the brow, and architect the future yourself? The choice and the true magic of authorship is entirely yours. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.